The Parliamentary Committee on Justice heard oral submissions on the proposed Cannabis for Private Purposes bill this week. Now, lobbyists rejecting the bill, they argued that heavy restrictions on cannabis use and possession failed to recognize the socio-economic potential to alleviate poverty and boost the local economy. Now, they criticized the government's failure to consult effectively with the public before drafting the bill. The process followed the historic landmark, the judgment by the Court in 2018, stating that South Africa had the right to consume cannabis in the privacy of their own homes. The Apex Court gave Parliament 24 months to change the legislation, but the Department of Agriculture missed the deadline. Now, for more on this, we are speaking to CEO of BioMuti, a complementary medicine business and chairperson of the Cannabis Trade Association Africa, Tebogo Tlhopane, as well as an attorney at Umzivu Farmers Support Network, who is Ricky Ston. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Let's start with you, Tebogo. The government are essentially looking at turning cannabis into a viable business sector. Now, looking at this proposed bill, what are your sentiments regarding that?
Thank you, Buhle, for having us, and thank you for your also to your viewership. Look, I mean, as far as things are looking, the government seems to be wanting to create a platform where cannabis can be unlocked as a value crop or as a value product. And I think initially when this happened, it was pretty much in silos, and obviously when it came out, it looked really rather worrying the way it was structured, because it seems as if we didn't really tackle all the issues that we had with the apartheid law that cannabis is and was at the time, and it wasn't changed. And how are you going to have an inclusive economy when you don't have when you have this crop that's still sitting at the Drug Trafficking Act? So at the end of the day, it's important that that comes out so that it allows everybody within the value chain to actually participate. We have over 900,000 farmers in South Africa that have been farming cannabis for a very long time, and I think it will make sense that we incorporate those number of people in continuing if we're going to make this crop into a value product that can be sold.
Now, Ricky, Tebogo speaks of 900,000 farmers farming cannabis for a very long time in South Africa, but legislatively that is still illegal unless you're doing it, of course, for medicinal purposes under a, if you have the right paperwork for that. Talk to me about the legislation that, they're trying to put into play at the moment to almost, I guess, make it easier for those at home to consume cannabis, but it seems like those farmers are still not looked at all.
Thank you for that very important question, and good morning to your Newzroom Afrika viewers as well, and of course, good morning to Tebogo. Yes, thank you, man. Very, very important question, that. And look, the bill to me is really a non-starter. It's quite a delayed yet knee-jerk reaction, merely intended to cure the constitutional defect which the Apex Court pronounced upon on 18 September 2018. So, look, as you well know, Parliament had 24 months to cure those defects. So what you're seeing here is a shallow attempt to just meet the very minimum standard of permitting the adult cultivation and use of cannabis. Now, I mean, that is it's obviously fantastic for those adult South Africans that consume cannabis, but it's very problematic for those South Africans who do not have private spaces or places to cultivate cannabis. You think of somebody perhaps like Tebogo sitting on the second floor, first floor of apartment there, who might not necessarily have a garden, they might not have the skills to grow indoor cannabis. So it's really where you've got the Department of Agriculture supporting like a full-scale reform of cannabis law to really unlock the economic potential of cannabis. This bill is very narrowly construed just to give, I guess, certain South Africans with particular skill and perhaps space the ability to cultivate cannabis. So it certainly doesn't go far enough. There's not enough innovation, and I think what is probably quite clear is that this bill won't see the light of day, and that's what we're hoping for.
I mean, quite a pessimistic outlook to this bill that Ricky has there, Tebogo, but with South Africa being, you know, according to Interpol, the fourth largest producer of cannabis in the country, rather in the world, some would say that they essentially trying to safeguard the South African citizens. Now, there are a lot of arguments that can be made to, towards and against that specific point, but talk to me about the dangers, I guess, that the government might be looking towards of cannabis, and the reason why they want to make it so restricted or heavily restricted to access cannabis in this country.
Well, I think if you look at those numbers from Interpol, they are a little bit subdued. There's an organization called Provision Partners. They did a study. They actually found out that South Africa is actually the second biggest cannabis producers in the world. So that means that you're sitting with this potential possibility of supplying the rest of the world with cannabis that is grown here at home with our amazing sun and everything else. So at the end of the day, that argument doesn't hold when it comes to the fact that there's an opportunity right there. Now, the issue regarding safety, that's also another argument that doesn't hold water, because if alcohol and cigarettes and all sorts of things are legal and can be, bought, why can you not have cannabis to be regulated the same way? I mean, it is a crop after all, and it's been proven not to be as toxic as many of these products I've just mentioned. But I think, let's put things into perspective and say, if we have this potential of a plant that globally everywhere it's opening up, why we cannot jump onto that bandwagon as quickly as possible? Because as we see right now, our unemployment rate is crazy. We need to do something, and we need to do something now. We can't just wait and plan, and you know what I mean? So I think we need to act, and we need to act fast. Ricky, and I think this is the right opportunity to do it.
Ricky, now there's about 28 billion rand of a largely black cannabis market on the South African streets at the moment. What would the ideal bill look like to get that market alive and to get that money into the economy?
Well, look, I guess that's the objective here, right? And the reality. This is not a new industry that we're trying to create. We're merely looking at ways to regulate it responsibly. So you have to take into account that there's millions of South Africans that have traded in cannabis for hundreds and hundreds of years. Now, if the regulation of a new illicit industry is not rational and reasonable, and is excessive and seen to still be prohibitionist by nature, then those people will just continue playing in the same market that they have and accepting those risks for many years. So, I mean, the real point of regulating cannabis is to take that market perhaps out of the hands of drug cartels and indeed bring it into the tax net, But with that said, a big part of the existing cannabis trade is in the informal market, or casinomics, as Gigi Alcock has termed it, which is a large contributor, I think up to a quarter of our economy, and it's largely cash-based too. So look, what I advocate for is that we need appropriate levels of regulation. They can come in at the point of processing or around the point of sale. But perhaps just to lean onto your question and segue back to your question to Tebogo, is really around the scale of harms. Not a single person has ever died from cannabis. If we look at it on Professor Nutt's well-entrenched scale of harms principle, cannabis is far less harmful than alcohol, tobacco, and even sugar for that matter, So we have to bear that in mind, and it needs to find an appropriate level of regulation. Bring those that are in the trade into the regulated industry, have them register cooperatives that are registered with government or other smaller businesses, pay appropriate levels of taxation, and in that way we can unlock the economy, and create as many jobs as we can.
Tebogo, as succinctly as possible, now talking about this proposed bill, what does that do for communities like the Rastafarians who need this for religious and healthcare purposes?
Can you repeat that question again? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
What does this new proposed bill do for communities like Rastafarians at the moment?
It's a very good question, and I think that's one of the lines that Ricky touched, that it was a knee-jerk approach, putting it together quickly just to make sure that it's out of the way, and it didn't really look at all the different aspects: the right to religion, right to health if I wanted to use it for my health, right to space if I wanted to grow it, and most people don't even have that enough space to grow it in our backyard. So all those things were not really put into factors. And talking about religion, which is what the Rastafarians use it for, and I mean, it's very important that it covers all those aspects of it, not just something that they put together, and you know what I mean. But the fact that we had this law still there from the apartheid years, it's a worrying factor that it hasn't really moved much from where it was. And I think it's important that the bill reflect what's going on, globally. It's not just done in isolation as if we are living in some island.
That is Tebogo Tlhopane. He is the CEO of BioMuti, a healthcare complementary medicine business and chairperson of the Cannabis Trade Association. On the other side of your screen is an attorney from Umzimvubu Farmers Support Network, Ricky Ston. Gentlemen, I thank you for your time this morning.